This series is presented in partnership with the Black Magic Woman podcast, Cairns Indigenous Art Fair, and Bummer Bibber Media, 98.7 FM.
Welcome to the Black Magic Woman podcast with Mundanara Bales.
I'd like to begin this podcast by acknowledging the traditional owners of whose land where this podcast or vodcast is being recorded. I'd also like to acknowledge their elders past and present and acknowledge that this always was and always will be Aboriginal land. We have never ceded our sovereignty as First Nations peoples living in this country, now known as Australia. And welcome to episode 2 of the Cairns Indigenous Art Fair, also known as the CIAF Black Magic Woman series. It's an opportunity for you to hear about what's happening in Cairns from the 6th to the 10th of July 2022. So I'd like to welcome my guest today, Janina Harding, who is going to share a little bit about what she does for CIAF. But also, before we even get there, Janina, welcome to the Black Magic Woman podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. This is very exciting to have you in town.
I know. And as always, I ask every single guest, whether they're Indigenous or non-Indigenous, can you tell us, obviously we know your name, but who your mob is and where you grew up?
Well, my mother comes from Erub. So we're related to all the Eastern Island people of the Torres Strait. So that's Murray Island, or Erub. And we also have a link with Cape York too through my grandfather, mum's dad. So the far north east coast of Cape York. And because of colonisation and all that kind of stuff, we're still trying to find out which part of the country he comes from, because it's a big place, Cape York. But we kind of know the vicinity. And my son, who's actually researching at the moment, we're still trying to sort of work all that out. If we don't find it, we don't find it, and we just sort of, chalk it up to colonisation. And one of the worst things is that, families get split up. There aren't any records of our people. And I guess people that work in sort of archives in libraries and, in state library institutions around the country, if you're Indigenous, you're lucky to work there, because a lot of the time you're getting phone calls all the time from people trying to find out. And my son's one of those people that ring up all the time and trying to find out where our family comes from in the Cape York area. Wow. It's just and even that, he's actually writing his PhD all about that.
I might have to get him on the podcast.
Yeah, you might have to, because it's a really interesting topic. And I just think he's
Definitely.
There's new things he's sort of facing and working out every, when he sort of does his research all the time. It's incredible. And he's been working on it for a couple of years now. So, yeah, watch this space.
Watch this space.
Yeah.
So did you grow up here? So we're in Cairns. We're recording this on the lands of the Gimoy,
Wallabara, Yidinji, and Irriganji lands,
Are all the different mobs here?
Yeah.
And did you grow up here in Cairns?
No, I used to come up here with Mum. We'd always come up to see relatives. I grew up in Melbourne. I was born in the Women's Hospital in Carlton in Melbourne, like most of us kids in the family. And basically we'd come up school holidays. We'd come up this way to see family, go to Innisfail, come to Cairns, Townsville, and just to catch up with family. So every Christmas holidays I'd spend time up here. But I always loved Cairns, and when this, position came up at CIAF, I took it, yes.
All right. So now tell me, I know that in terms of Melbourne's cold country, right? I've been there a couple of times. It's quite cold. And here in Cairns, now this is for people, especially listeners from around the world that are listening to Black Magic Woman, and thank you for following my journey and listening. It's been amazing to see the amount of downloads in places like India, America, New Zealand, everywhere, which is really good. So you've got Cairns, which is kind of like sometimes 27, 28 degrees and a little bit humid. And then you've got Melbourne. How did you adjust to the climate?
Easy, because I'm very much, my body has always been, I always love the heat. I don't know if people, been in Melbourne during summer when we've had heat waves. People, they freak out like it's the end of the world, and I'm there happy as Larry. I love it. But up here it's different heat because it's dry heat down in Melbourne. But up here, it's tropical, so it's humid. So the top temperature around, hovers around 31, 32 during summertime. And winter, like today, it gets down to about 24 and I'm freezing.
Yes, I know. It was the first time I actually felt like I needed a jumper here.
Yeah.
And I didn't bring a jumper.
Oh, see, there you go.
I'm used to
it's winter.
Yes, I'm like, yep, tropical, it's still going to be 30 degrees, we'll be all good. So now I've learnt a lesson. If anyone's coming up for CIAF, which is in July, what should they wear? I haven't thought about asking
cardigans
this question.
and hoodies and,
Bring your cardigans, bring your hoodies. Don't think, tropical North Queensland, it's just sand shoes.
You'll need a jacket, yeah.
Definitely need a jacket.
Closed shoes too, because it might rain or you never know.
There you go.
Weather's changed too. As we all know, climate, the climate change and everything, it's happened here as well.
You can look at the app. You can go onto the bureau or look at the weather app.
Go to BOM, check it out before you come.
But don't assume like me.
Yeah.
Right, that you go into tropical North Queensland and you don't need any jumpers because I didn't bring any. So
you're from Queensland anyway, but if you're from Melbourne, I see a lot of tourists up here today walking around with, shorts and singlets, and they're hot, obviously, because they've come from Tassie or Melbourne or some cold place. Of course.
All right. Tell us about the Cairns Indigenous Art Fair. Like, I know you've been involved for the last 7 years. Can you tell us, how did you get involved with CIAF?
That was I was talking about this last night. It was just per chance. I was at a Melbourne festival, I think it was a Melbourne festival theatre play and theatre show in Footscray, and Cameron Costello was there. And I remember him from years ago, and I'm like, Cameron, is that you,
And I've just seen him.
Yeah, he's here in Cairns now.
Indigenous Tourism Conference here in Cairns. And I said to him yesterday, Braz, you need to get on my podcast. So I'm going to say it again. If you're listening, Cameron Costello, this is the call out. So you make time, only an hour to jump on the podcast. So Cameron Costello.
Yeah, so Cameron was in this theatre in the foyer, we're having drinks and da-da-da.
Yeah.
And me and my friend went, made a beeline because we know him and stuff. And I just said, what are you doing in Melbourne? Because I hardly don't see him in Melbourne. And, it was quite a surprise. So we started having a yarn and he said, do you know of anyone? He goes, you work in the, do you know of anyone that would like to be the artistic director for CIAF? And I'm like, I love CIAF. I go there every year, da-da-da-da-da. And my girlfriend was sort of like elbowing me, saying, you should go for it. You always love Cairns. I said, but I've got a job. I said, I've got a job. I worked at the City of Melbourne for 14 years or something. And then I just went from the City of Melbourne and transitioned into CIAF. So it was as simple as that. And the reason he was down there, people don't know about, he wrote a poem and it was about a hairy man, and that poem became the play. It became an experimental theatre production. It was incredible, done by Margaret Harvey. It was a fantastic thing that they did on his he doesn't sort of skite about things like that. Mm-hmm. He's actually, quite a versatile kind of character.
who's was, well, I would say working on Minjuraba around, obviously, Kayak was the organisation that he was the CEO of.
That's right.
For quite some time. Mm. So, and heavily involved with tourism, and then he's at Melbourne at a play.
Yeah, and writes poetry.
What else can you do, Cameron?
Yeah, that's it.
So you came to Cairns as the artistic director.
Yeah, and I kind of felt at home here because, coming up all those, my childhood and everything. And I knew, there was cousins here and uncles and that kind of thing. And I thought, I'll get to sort of meet them. And I haven't had a chance really to spend much time with my family here, unfortunately. I do at the CIAF. They always come.
Yeah.
And occasionally, there'll be, unfortunately there will be the funeral that we all catch up on. Or there might be a wedding or something that we catch up, that kind of stuff. But that's about it because of time, time poor and everything. But I knew that I'd eventually find my place here. And, I kind of think I have. Mm-hmm. I feel kind of welcomed. I felt welcomed on, from the bat because I've got that Torres Strait, connection there.
Family line
there. And people knew my mother as well, so that's always good.
Of course. It's kind of the
Eleanor Harding.
The check, the tick, know who you are, good.
They knew Mum. And they also, and then I got a place in, I had to find somewhere to live, and all that kind of stuff. So I found a place, a place to live, and then I went to the local supermarket And they've got this historic society, Cairns Historic Society, put this board up. And it's got all these old, pictures of people and buildings and that kind of stuff. And I thought, who are these? I went closer to this wall and I thought, who are these black people? I went closer. They're my family.
Wow, as part of the history here in Cairns.
History of Cairns. There they are.
Wow.
So how was that? I was like, what the,
And in terms of
incredible.
In terms of the work at CIAF, what if, for people that are listening, what will people experience? Like it doesn't have to be, what are the big draw cards? I think everything on the program is a draw card.
Totally, yeah.
But what would you, if you could tell people about it so they put it in their diary, buy their tickets and go, I'm not missing this event.
Yeah. I think it's about the experience you get, and it's the people that go to it. It's the artists that you get to talk to. And you know what our mob's like? They love to have a yarn about what they're doing, especially artists, the visual artists that go to that are in the art fair. They stand there. I mean, some of them will stand there for hours or sit around their booths or whatever, and they've got constant people just coming in to look at the art, and they, and they're answering questions, and they answer questions about their community. They love talking about their community. They love talking about the process of their art, their own practice and how they make it. They talk about, they'll talk about anything that they, they want to share.
Yeah.
And it's all that sharing that our people love to do that makes it the event it is.
Uh-huh.
It's sharing the art, it's sharing the performance, it's sharing those stories. And it's just that you won't experience that anywhere in the world, because I think Queensland and Queensland art and our performers and all that kind of stuff, our creative people from this state, I don't know, they just got this extraordinary power within them. I don't know where it comes from or what makes that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's this.
You've witnessed that. You've experienced it yourself, and you're trying to sum it up.
Yeah, I'm trying to sum it up, and I don't think you can make, you can articulate that.
Yeah.
You have to experience that, and it's this total. I mean, in tourism, how they use that word immersion. You immerse yourself in the culture. Well, that's a bit like what it is, but it's actually legit. CIAF kind of legitimizes that phrase, because that's exactly what it is, exactly, and it's just like this. It is, and it's goosebumpy kind of stuff that people feel.
And in terms of arts, right, I'm in Brisbane a lot of the time. We've got a cultural tourism business. It's a walking tour in Brisbane, and we use art. So when you come to Brisbane next, we use art, public Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander art, right? We're activating it, and we're telling the story of the art or the artist, not about country, not about the Yagara or the Turrbal people, but this is Vernon Arkey's artwork. This is Judy Watson's. This is Lilla Watson's, This is Fiona Foley. So we're using art to educate people and also to immerse them in our culture in Brisbane. It's the tour guide that exchanges conversation, shares their own lived experience. So we do that in Brisbane. And one of the biggest myths is that Aboriginal art or Indigenous art is dot painting.
Oh, don't get me started on that.
So I want to use this opportunity now to talk about in terms of what is Indigenous art.
Yeah. Can I just dismiss the myth that you just mentioned?
Oh, yes, please.
With me, one of my, and I did this in Melbourne because I've worked in the arts for, decades now, is to try and steer our Aboriginal and Torres Strait artists, our First Peoples artists, away from doing the dots. Because they come from Central Desert. That's where they originated from, and they've come from, that belongs to them, those people. I wouldn't, as an artist, I try and teach people and I try to be so, hard on them, I guess I am half the time. I've had people in tears talking about this kind of stuff, is that you don't want to appropriate other people's culture. You don't want to appropriate other people's motives and the way their art's represented. Because when people see work from Central Desert, they know that's from those people. But people on the East Coast who are doing this, and for that matter, probably over on the West Coast as well, shouldn't be doing it either. So it becomes this sort of, and what's come out even more so over the years is not even just mimicking what they do in Central Desert, but they're also got this stylistic way now where every dot is perfect. Every dot, well, they're not perfect in Central Australia, are they? They're not perfect dots. But now you've got now what you see in all the government brochures and all the
Well,
the tourist souvenir
because
shops and that kind of stuff.
I think they're using software.
Probably.
Yeah, that's why they're perfect. Did you know that?
Well,
they're
you go.
using digital
Yeah.
forms now, and it's not the traditional, I'll do it on a canvas, let's produce it on a pamphlet or a T-shirt or a mug. It's all digital. And that's why people are getting these perfect dots, so it doesn't actually look authentic. I know exactly what you're talking about.
But I have, you know what I'm talking about there.
Yeah.
But there's also our own mob doing it.
Yeah.
And during CIAF, I think it was in 2016 I did it. We had a prison show. So I had four prisons that we contacted, and we got our mob to make art, right? We had sent in all the canvases, whatever they needed.
Yeah.
And so they sent them all back to us for this exhibition that we had at the Tanks Art Centre there, here in Cairns. And I went to one of the prisons, the local one here, Lotus Glen, and had a yarn to them. And, I said, "Why do you do dots?" And I just didn't ask, just said a simple question like that. And they said, it makes me, it's therapeutic, basically. Because when they're doing it, it takes their mind away from their surroundings.
Of course.
And it takes them back to what they think about their country while they're doing it. They think about their life before they were incarcerated. They think about their family.
Wow.
There's all these things come flooding in as they're doing their dots. So I didn't mind any of that kind of stuff in our exhibition, and I explained all that to the people that came to saw that exhibition. Of course, obviously the artists weren't allowed to go to the exhibition, but they got to see. We videoed it. We videoed the opening night, and they got to see that, and they were so chuffed with the whole thing. I can't remember which prison it was, but one of them. Some of the guys made little boomerangs, like, they do woodwork in there.
Yep.
I did about 100 of them to hand out to all the opening night guests. It was just so beautiful.
How deadly is it that this festival has actually been able to reach, engage, have our mob, I'm not going to call them prisoners, they're people.
Yeah, people.
That have our mob who are behind bars be able to participate in an international art fair. I heard mob from all around the world come to Cairns for this festival.
Yeah.
And I've been hearing about it for a very long time. What's been the highlight of your 7 years of being the artistic director? What's been your highlight? Oh, there's many. I know there's probably many.
There's probably heaps over those years. Because this will be my eighth CIAF this year. So I'm thinking there's bound to be highlights this year. But there's a couple. One was the prison one. Yeah, definitely. Because, people that came to it, they were just overwhelmed. There were women crying while they're looking at the work, thinking about that artist and, that this artist's incarcerated. But look at their beautiful work. It's so touching and moving.
And the fact that they're locked away when they could be out here.
Yeah. And also part of that
contributing to society in a productive way, and yet we've got them locked up.
Yeah. So I try to do what they do in Victoria, with their art exhibition. They do that prison art exhibition.
No.
Oh, they do this one in Victoria. And I got in touch with the guy that runs it. He's an artist himself. And so how did you go about, because they changed the law in Victoria because Jeff Kennett changed the law. See, people like that can change the law when they want to for us mob. He changed the law because he sat on their board for that prison prison art.
That prison board, yeah.
And somehow he got the government to change the law where they could the prisoners could get money back from the sales of their work in that exhibition each year.
So in Queensland, that they said that if an Aboriginal artist in prison sells their artwork, then that is proceeds of crime.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
that
absolutely
wasn't seen like that in Victoria. Was not seen like that at all. So I tried to get the Premier here to change it, and that didn't happen.
Yeah.
So...
Well, maybe that's something.
And
that's
Jeff Kennett's such a conservative guy,
Janina, this is a conversation that we need to actually take to the Premier now of Queensland and ask.
Yeah.
Is there an opportunity to put this back on the table?
It's been written to her. She doesn't ignore it. Maybe we could bring it back on the table.
Leanne Enoch, my sister.
Leanne's back
if you're a Minister of Arts, I don't know if you still are, but
yeah, she is.
We need to have a yarn. Maybe we'll get you on the podcast.
That would be fantastic because so what happens is when they accumulate so much money out of their sales each year, they can just keep it. They put it in some kind of account, And so it gets accumulated. So by the time they get out, they might have $2,000, $5,000.
That's
you know
money
what that
to
does?
set them up.
You know the stories I've heard in Victoria? Those former prisoners, when they're out, they go out and they don't go back to that same lifestyle. They don't go back to the same people where the drugs are.
They've got money. They go
to a different state.
Yep.
They actually start a whole new life. People have done that.
Because there's money in their pocket.
Yeah, and they can set themselves up in a flat or whatever.
We need to talk about this because I was aware of it a long time ago, but I haven't thought about it until this yarn. So thank you for bringing it
No worries.
to my attention again. And I think the power of these yarns on a podcast where people from all around the world now can hear what's going on in our country, the fact that we see an Aboriginal man or woman, you know, painting, therapeutic, doing paint. Now it seems like a business because they can sell it. The fact that they see that as proceeds of crime when this person might be in prison because they didn't pay a fine.
Yeah. So the way the Victorian government said they don't get the whole amount of money. What it goes towards victims of crime. So they said I think it's something like 40% goes towards victims of crime, 60 goes something like that, which is fine.
Something.
But at least you know that it's sort of weighed up.
Yeah.
Whereas no other state is doing that at all.
Okay.
And they need to wake up.
I know that Victoria doing it.
Yeah.
Then there's something now. It's kind of like they set precedents. It's like they're doing it. Why can't we change the law?
Yep.
So one of your highlights is the prison show, art show.
There's another highlight that I did. I can't remember whether was that 2018. I think it was, or 2019. Was Cultural Heights. So that was choirs. So we had I organised for 3 choir directors. So we had a Torres Strait one, Joey DePauw, based on Mer. So he had a Mer choir that he had to organise. I brought on Darlene Briscoe.
Oh, wow.
She was our choir director. She dealt with Yarrabah and Wujul Wujul. So there was 2 from there. And then we had, who was the other one? Oh, yeah, the other Torres Strait. There was another Torres Strait one. It was the Central Islands in the Torres Strait. So we had Philemon do that. Philemon must be, you know who Philemon is?
Yes.
Yeah. So he was the other choir director. So the 3 of them were absolutely amazing. We had something like, how many people did we end up bringing down? It was like 140 people on the stage at the end.
Wow.
So we broke them all up so they all had their own sections and everything like that.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, geez, it was logistically, it was like full on. I won't say it was a nightmare because they were all very well, you know, everything was like.
You made it happen. That was the main thing.
We made it happen. But geez, it was hard to navigate and get all the groups, you know, and get people on, because sometimes lines go down in the Torres Strait. You can't get on top, you know. Things happen like that, technically, you know, or the technology stuff happens. And then there was this, and what we did, the beauty about that is that I went and got legal advice, and so all the songs were sung in language, and they were that community's language songs, the songs they sing, the songs they know. Yeah. Right? They sing it in church or they sing it, you know, at their community events and that kind of thing. So they're known songs. Then I said, look, let's publish something. We need to get a booklet out. So they had to get all the language written down, all the songs written down in language. Then they had to find out who the composers were, like who wrote it. And some of them were like, oh, and that was research for them to go and do it. So that was really good for them to go and research that, talk to family about all that. Then we had to put all that names down there. Some are unknown, but most of them were actually known. Mm-hmm. And there was things like when some of the elders arrived from, it was one of the Murray Island elders. He's got diabetes, right? We weren't even sure. He's got and he needed to be there because he's like the one that brings everybody together kind of thing. Yeah. And he's very vital in the choir, the makeup of the choir, right? So he had to come. But he's got diabetes, right? And was, we didn't know whether. By the time he came to Cairns, no more diabetes. He wasn't suffering at all. He was just like a sprightly young man. Because here he is singing and he feels like he's got a purpose. You know? Mm-hmm. So CIAF can be life-changing for people, you know, and that's what I love about it. Yeah. For our artists, sometimes it can be life-changing, like for those prisoners, for this man that come from Murray Island, you know, this elder, things like that can be life-changing for. Yeah.
And what do you hope for this CIAF? Tell me about this CIAF. What's in store for this CIAF?
I think the big thing, we've got this big project called Big Sculpture, big Sculpture Showcase. So they're large-scale sculptures that'll be we've got them sort of sitting around the circumference of the convention centre, the Cairns Convention Centre. So it'll be like walking around a park but inside. Like you have a sculpture park, it'll be inside this convention centre.
Wow.
And there's 17 of them. So they're major works.
Yep.
And you just go, and the artists will be hanging around for a few days, so you can go and talk to them, talk about how they made it. I don't know how, some of them, they've had to get welders in and all sorts of things have come
to get these big life.
Amazing plinths have been designed to put them on, this kind of stuff. So it's like, it was a lot of huge work. So T.O. Ropeyard, our curatorial associate for CIAF, he's from Ingenuity, the tip of the Cape there. He's a curator, a qualified curator. And he's put it all together. He's amazing. Yeah.
So big sculpture. For people listening, make sure you get to the Cairns Convention Centre.
Yeah.
And check it out.
Yeah.
Is there any theatre? Our mob are right into the theatre, the arts, plays. Is there any kind of...
There's a play that we've got on, a theatre production that the local theatre company are putting on. And it's based on a local identity, David Hudson.
Okay.
Yeah, who's been around in tourism for a long time.
He's
like
emceeing,
the grandfather of tourism.
He is emceeing the tourism conference that I am currently at.
Right. He's a great MC. He's a fantastic
there
MC.
There you go. Big shout out to Brother David. He might be uncle to me.
Yeah. He's and it's all about the life and times of David Hudson. So because he's had an extraordinary career, in that tourism space and all over the place.
What's the arts? What's the theatre place here called?
Jute Theatre.
Jute or Juke?
Jute
Theatre.
Jute. Yeah.
And Jute Theatre's under Queensland Theatre Company, isn't it? It's part of Queensland Theatre Company, Jute. I
don't think it is. I think it's independent.
Is it independent?
It's independent local theatre company that's set up by local people here.
Okay.
And it's been going for like 20 years or something.
Yeah.
It's been around a while.
Excellent. So you go online to CIAF and you actually book your events, pay for things online?
You can. We've got ticketed events, but like the art fair is all free after opening night. So you get to see Big Sculpture for free. You'll get to see, all these other amazing things for free.
Yeah.
There's galleries that'll be open all over the place. You get to see art.
How many days do you think people need to be here to really experience the full experience of CIAF? Can they do it in 2 days?
No, you can't because there's different things on every night.
Okay. So you need the week.
You need from that Wednesday right through to the Sunday because then we have, you've got that opening. But even before the opening, we have a symposium where we've got amazing speakers talking about their art practice and what they do. Yeah.
Who are some of the speakers?
So Jerry Turpin's our keynote speaker because this year's theme's all about plants and trees.
Yeah.
And it's about cultural knowledge of that. So he's an ethnobotanist. And
wow. I don't think I've met another
local fella.
Black fella ethnobotanist.
Yeah. And he lives up in the
up in the mountains?
Mountains there.
Yeah.
And he's, so he'll come down to talk about, because he just come back from Jamaica. He goes all over the place lecturing and going to conferences and talking to people about what he does and all that kind of stuff. So he's an extraordinary man. So he gets to talk about that for a little while as a keynote speaker. And then it's just different people. We've got Jessie Mosby talking about climate change in the Torres Strait.
Wow, some really important issues.
All the issues, there's issue-based, there's artist-based, there's all sorts of things that we do in the symposium. I like sort of an eclectic mix that I like to do with my programming in each kind of area where I kind of mix it all up. And same with when I do the concerts and that, when I organise the concerts, so there's very eclectic mix of, up-and-coming, emerging musos right through to people like Frank Yammer,
Yep.
And,
So you got a concert happening as well.
That's right. We've got Maisha coming to town for the first time.
Stop it.
Yes.
Sister Maisha, I want to book her for my 40th birthday party. Literally, I was saying to someone yesterday, I'm like, that's Sister from Warrabinda. And they're like, yeah, Maisha. So she's coming to CIAF.
Yeah, she's performing on Saturday night.
Oh, stop it. I think I need to fly up here.
You have to.
For Maisha and for the whole experience.
Yeah.
So you got Maisha performing.
Yeah, so you have, and I like to have that generational thing too. So this young girl, 16, she'll start off the concert, right? She's 16, local girl from Cairns, singer-songwriter, lovely.
Wow.
And then we've got a local Yarrabah group, Jarring, and they've been around for apparently 20 odd years or something. Just playing for the community, a community band, community
play all the old favourites,
that kind of thing. So they'll be performing, and then I think we've got Maisha and we've got Joey Tapau. Joey's coming in again from Murray Island, who was our choir director back in. He's a singer, songwriter, so he's going to sing. And then because we've got to have Torres Strait in there as well,
of course.
So this is how I program it when I do it. I have always got to have the Torres Strait balance there with the local, and then there's Maisha. No, then there's Frank Yammer, and I put Frank Yammer in there because I thought he hasn't been I get him in Melbourne. I was doing concerts in Melbourne or whatever. But I haven't seen him for a long time. I'm going to get him up here because Cairns hasn't seen him for a long time either. I don't even think Cairns has even seen him up here. I don't know if he's even been here.
I think
he has.
I remember listening to Frank Yammer on the Murray radio. Yeah. So I know him, but I've never seen him perform.
Oh, he's a fantastic performer.
Wow.
He's such a good guitarist.
So if you don't know who Frank Yammer is, Google him.
He is the best guitarist. Yeah. He learned off his dad, who used to be a country singer, who I remember, having little cassette tapes of his father back when I was little.
Wow.
And then Maisha is
she's the big name. Well, they're all big names.
Yeah.
Especially here in the community, people are going to recognise.
That's right.
Even the 16-year-old, they'll know who she is. The mob from Yarrabah,
and it's a generational thing too.
The older mob with Frank Yammer, you got to please the older mob, please the younger mob, and it's also an opportunity for all of these non-Indigenous visitors that are coming here to Cairns to experience our culture, like you said. The balance between Aboriginal and Torres Strait, and that's what's unique here in Queensland.
Yeah, exactly.
There is two groups here. You move out of Queensland, you don't see many Torres Strait people outside of Queensland. But for people that are not aware or never heard of the Torres Strait Islands, they are from the tip of Cape York to Papua New Guinea, and there's about 174.
Something like that.
Islands, maybe about 18 inhabited.
Yeah.
And if you haven't been to the Torres Strait, then Google it. I know it's on my bucket list to get there, and I know it's not far from Cairns.
No.
You can't get on a boat though, can you? You got to fly. How would you get?
No, there's
you can catch a boat.
There's a sponsor, They go to, I think they go to Moa. They're CIAF sponsor, Coral Expeditions. So you can jump on a Coral Expeditions
and go
ship or whatever they're called, and they go
yourself.
They go to Moa or Badu, one of those islands out there, and then they go to Arnhem. They go up to the Tiwi Islands. So it's an art tour. You do this art tour thing with them.
Oh, look, we could
visit Aboriginal communities.
Yarning all day about all of these opportunities that are here in Queensland, but in particular, for people that are listening, jump on the website. Is it www.ciaf.com.au?
That's it.
Jump on the website and hopefully, if you're not doing anything, make yourself available. Drop everything you're doing and come up to Cairns
and get your tickets.
Get your tickets. Don't forget to get your tickets, otherwise you might get here and they might be all sold out.
And check out our Facebook, because we're having trouble with our website at the moment.
Okay.
We're building a new one.
And we're all on Facebook.
Do the Facebook or the Insta.
Jump on Facebook or jump on Instagram. Everything will be in the show notes. And I just want to say really quickly, Janina, I know you're finishing up with CIAF as the artistic director. What's next for you? Are you allowed to share with us? Is there anything in the pipeline? Are you putting it out there to go back to Melbourne? What's happening?
I'm going back home. I just want to be with my family again. I left my son when he was just starting university. Now he's doing his PhD, as I said, and I haven't been part of his life all this time. So I just want to go home and spend some time with him, spend some time with my sisters, and, I just want to be with family.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, can I just say thank you so much for giving us, even an hour of your time to be here today. But also thanks for the last, 8 years of growing and supporting such, I would say, an important event, bringing our mob together and our mob being able to showcase our culture to the rest of the world. And I am a big supporter of our people and our culture and participating in the economy. So thank you.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
Pleasure.
This series is presented in partnership with the Black Magic Woman podcast, Cairns Indigenous Art Fair, and Bummer Bibber Media, 98.7 FM. The Cairns Indigenous Art Fair, 6th to the 10th of July in Cairns. For tickets or for more information on what's on, head to ciaf.com.au. That's ciaf.com.au.
Don't forget to follow Black Magic Woman podcast on all social media platforms. To keep up to date with the latest episodes and news, head to blackmagicwoman.com.au. You can rate and review the podcast on iTunes, and please feel free to share the podcast with your family and friends.